Today for a beautiful ascension story. We're going to storyboard ourselves. I know that many of you that have been with us for a while, and many of you that have taken probably many manifestation classes, we're going to look at manifestation and the imagination of Source Creator, inspiration of Source Creator. Everything that we manifest is the inspiration and manifestation of our imaginations, and how it is the seat and the soul of all that we are as multi-vibrational beings. And it's really important for us to see ourselves as that, to see and feel the alchemy, to feel. We want to be more sensing and more feeling energy bodies, multi-vibrational. Really start feeling your way through life and put that energy of feeling and emotion into who you're becoming and who you storyboard yourself to be. And allowing yourself to manifest a new reality for yourself in the minutia of spirit and matter. And so this is how we are manifesting, and allowing yourself to infuse with beautiful feelings and emotions and things that you want to feel with your body, to feel with the beauty of who you are, with the authenticity of who you are, and really bring that energy of spirit through the physical matter, through the physical body of who you are, heart, mind, body, and soul and spirit. And I got goosebumps already. And so it's going to be a very big it's going to be a big movement forward from shifting the perspective that we've grown up within, and who we are and what we are, and feeling and sensing around our bodies. And how can we do it and just flip it right upside down and create the imagination and inspiration of our bodies? And we all know that through many of us that have been working out for most of our lives, that our cells and our bodies and our muscles have memory. And so it's going to be important that we create that new code, that new memory, and we start rewriting the things that our bodies have been through. And I've suggested with all of my clients at nighttime, do intentional healing and intentional calling in with your teams to really start intending, directing, and focusing all that you are as a divine being of divine holy light, your connection and your relationship with Mother, Father, your connection and relationship with Spirit, and really start calling those energies in to start harmonizing and beautifying, bringing wellness and bringing health and vitality through the muscles, the tissues, and the various 11 to 13 systems of our bodies within and without. So again, as above, so below, and as within and so without. We wanted to start to bring spirit in all that we are as that matter. And we do require the harmonization of imagination and the harmonization of new inspiration of who we are becoming as spirit, who we are becoming as a divine being, and carrying ourselves as divine elegance, carrying ourselves with that divine light package, if you will. And then it starts to infuse within the cells and the tissues and the muscles, and recoding and redesigning all that we are, because your tissues do have memory, your muscles do have memory. All that is in your physical matter is carrying memory of what used to be. Even when you have cell reproduction, the cells are reproducing based on the last cycle of what the cell did. So you do have to go in and you have to recode it. You have to recode who you are becoming, how your cells replicate, how all that you are as this mechanism of matter replicates itself through its cycles of growth. And so this is brought up in many science genres. If you're going to look at the synapses and you're going to look at the telomeres, there's lots of videos out there on that, so I suggest going and doing your research on those experiences, on recoding and bringing in new memory for all that we are replicating. And it does have a lot to do with expanding into the Galactic Federations gave me many, many months ago, capacity and aptitude. And so to stretch our capacity and aptitude, we must reach higher, and we must go into creativity in new ways. Creativity is the spark and is inspiration. It is spirit. That's what inspiration means. It's to be of spirit. So to infuse spirit into all that we are as matter, into all that we are as a physical reality, is going to allow yourself to transmute and really bring that beauty and wellness, and really start self-designing yourself, and start beautifying yourself, and start harmonizing yourself as a spiritual being and a soulful spiritual being, and bring spirit back into the tissues, bring spirit back into the cells, and start enlivening your life through breath, through intention, through direction, and through focus of all that is life, and the breathing life into life. Because remember, God is life and life is God. And so the more that we intend as the commander of how are we directing our bodies, how are we focusing on our bodies, how are we bringing all that we are as multi-vibrational beings, multi-dimensional beings into these new infusions of light. And again, do your own research as to telomeres, the replication and expansiveness of telomeres. and doing consciousness work with telomeres, and doing consciousness work with cell reproductions or the replications of cells. All of these things are very important for us to create greater health and wellness. And how are we doing that? Are we allowing ourselves to be of the knowingness that we are heart, mind, body, and soul, one with spirit? And in the infusion of spirit, bringing spirit in on everything that we are and do and have, as above, so below, and as within, so without. And that's really what that means. The more that we are infusing spirit in all that we are, we're changing the chemistry and we're changing the way that our cells and our bodies replicate, how our bodies move through time and space. So our cycles aren't going to be the same as they used to be. Our cycles are going to be now spiritually derived, spiritually storyboarded, right? So take that time, once every week or so, or once every 3 weeks, or once every 2 weeks to storyboard, where are you at with who you are commanding yourself in creative self-design, spiritual self-design. We want it to be more intrinsically and soulfully and spiritually connected, because everything is from here on out is a spiritual journey. It always has been. We've just been misdirected and misguided and truly misinformed. And so really bringing those spiritual, beautiful spiritual 5D tools and gifts, and how we behave in a higher vibrational dimension is not how we behaved in 3D. We don't necessarily have to run out and get operations to fix or to change anything of ourselves physically, just because we're feeling that this needs to be fixed, that needs to be fixed, based on old paradigms and old expectations and old ideologies and old beliefs and old aspects of who we were. What was our old version of self-confidence look like? What did our old version of self-esteem look like? And where did we derive those ideals from? It was very skewed. It was very, very imbalanced and very, very one-sided, really. The divine feminine, how a divine feminine role model is seen in the world has been non-existent, really, and how it has been seen in various genres and pockets of energy in the collective, whether it be arts and entertainment or political arenas, inventive arenas. All of those things are very catchy, if you will, and there's not a lot there. So it's really important for all of us to be that role model, and bringing in new inspirations and new creativities and new imaginations of what does 5D North Star look like. We're becoming more harmonized with the higher celestial and alien aspects of who we are, universal aspects of who we are, absolutely balanced in our divine feminine masculine energy, becoming fully androgynous in the Adam Eve Antine particles. And all of those Antine particles are allowing us to become greater in light, greater infused in light. And so they're saying greater in the understanding of who we are in capacity and aptitude to be our highest version of self. If we are in the highest version of capacity and aptitude, that means we're able to call in all of the higher vibrational energies and stories that we would choose to want to keep, that we can inspire to ignite storyboards of our health and our wellness. How does our body want to look? How do we want to feel within our bodies? What does youthfulness really feel like if we're higher vibrational, right? So all of these experiences are how we're going to be driving and we're going to be directing the energy of our bodies. How we're going to be directing, how can I feel better in my body and more youthful in my body? Because it is really from within and without. I can tell you countless stories of these beautiful women that I've met. And when I was in styling, I was doing fashion styling, and I had many clients from all different age groups. And there was this one beautiful Saturday I dealt with this beautiful lady, and she was in her 90s. And she came in with, I think it was her son-in-law, and he was helping her, do some shopping. They had a family event that they were shopping for, and they had this big family dinner. And so I helped style her, and she was the most vibrant, beautiful woman. She didn't look, of course, we have these notions and ideals about age, but because her energy and her spirit from within her was so very youthful, and she would be, flying around the stores, picking and pulling things, and I'd have to really guide the energy, as a stylist, to make sure that we were staying focused on point, and I would have to really work extra hard to, kind of corral her energy. But even at 90, she was vibrant and vivacious in who she was, and she was very proud of it. She said, "This is how old I am. I think that living in a state of spirit is so important to youthfulness and how you behave in the world." And of course, the person she was with, I think, was her son, because he was much younger than her. But he was just loving the experience of watching his mom go shopping, right, and get dressed up in these, fancy clothes that, she didn't necessarily wear all the time, but she just had a most beautiful spirit. And I wanted to match that emulation of fashion and detail. And so she went out of the store with a beautiful outfit, and she was very, very happy with how she left. left, and her son carried out the, the garment bags. So it was really fun to see her just really have that beautiful exploration with herself. And she really wanted to express who she was as a spirit through the clothes. And this is why I love styling so much. I love fashion. Because it helps us play, and it helps us become more sacred in who we are as playful beings. And that is too, we want to bring up, they're saying that we bring up these energies when people are going through, whether you're in a divine masculine body or divine feminine body. Again, we want to just release the ideals of gender, who we're defining and who we're preferencing as far as gender and the preference of sexuality and all of those things, but just the encasing that you're in and how you choose to express yourself in whatever ascension cycle that you're moving through, whether it's a divine feminine energy you want to express or a divine masculine energy you want to express. That has everything to do with our confidence, our self-esteem, and how we feel about ourselves. And so this episode of Inspiration Imagination is just allowing ourselves to be a little bit more privy to how important it is to bring love and honor and compassion into designing ourselves in a more beautiful way, allowing ourselves to be more enveloped in self-love and self-design and fashion and the beauty industry, and allowing it, instead of be a beauty industry, create things on a storyboard that are beautiful things for you. So whether it's essential oils, taking care of yourself, whether it's massage, getting out to Gaia, having swims in the ocean, they're very good for your body. And then again, finding a stylist that will allow your energies from your spirit within yourself to come forward and tell different stories at different times of the year and different celebrations. As a stylist, that would always be part of our job, is to style directly related to, I always styled this way anyways, I styled calling the energy from the spirit from within, and then secondary, what was the event and what are the important aspects that the person wants to style, where are their interests guiding for the styling. But for me, it would always be important to bring the spirit of that style out first, because there is always a spirited story. There's always a spiritual story within everything that is matter. And so that's part of my job as a teacher, healer, and a reader, is to come forward and bring the most exciting, beautiful story that's the most youthful, that fits that personality and spirit. And that's why in a mediumship, when we're reading, we're talking about the clairs, those that are mediums and those that do have clair gifts to read and tap into energy, sometimes how we read energy and how we recognize energy, even how we anticipate energy, is from the energy beings on the other side. And so we bring their essence of personality through, right? And so personality helps us define greater confidence and greater self-esteem. But how do we design personality? Personality is, again, who you are as a spirit and who you are as a soul, being authentic and not having too much waving back and forth as to manipulating that sense of spirit and manipulating that authenticity, because then it becomes fake, and people can tell when you're fake, and people can tell when you're trying too hard. People can tell when you're putting in too much focus or effort in the outer, and it really should, that the beauty and the imagination and how you're inspiring yourself to be beautiful, how you're inspiring yourself to really take love of a personality attribute. We all have different personality attributes. As you've seen in all my videos, there's times where I show my healing side of it, and that's allowance and purging. And that's the allowance to have yourself being healed, allowing for that divine feminine energies to transform you and transmute and purge. There's so many energy personalities that we have and we carry within ourselves in any given month, right? And to really give yourself compassion and love and honor those personalities, that's the dodecahedron. And then be okay with it when you do have to be stern and you do have to set boundaries and rules of engagement. And you can be more firm, and you can say it with very confidence and personality of, I know who I am. I'm not going to step out of this aspect of who I am. I've done my homework. I know what I want to present, and that's all that matters, because this is my it is my treasured lifetime here. I get to speak, and experience who I am. I get to express who I am, and those are my human rights, and those are actually my universal rights that trump even the human experience. And so knowing all of these things, and that's why the ascension pathwork is so important, because you can't do and culminate, and you can't move through life and have any specific direction of, what are you creating for yourself, and what are you creating with these new omnipresent energies that are heightened. Remember, every new day we have heightened omnipresent energies of rarefied source light, of rarefied source energy, of rarefied co-creative energy, because your collective is going through an awakening every day, which therefore purges and cleanses that omnipresent energy of the collective. And that is what is encompassing in your soul's blueprint, the sacred Trinity, the energies of the heavens that are always being bathed on the collective and always being bathed on Gaia and always being bathed on the galaxy because it's going through an evolution in and of itself. And then you have your collective energy that is always changing. Your collective is awakening every day. Your collective is shifting its collective heart energy. Your collective is shifting its universal energy of how it sees and feels itself. So in all of the sacred trinity of all that we are, and then there's Gaia, and Gaia is being bathed with new beautiful light every day. So she's even emulating in her give and take and her breath of life. She is emulating even higher refined energy. And so this is why you find that people that aren't doing pathwork, people that aren't doing the integration and healing, they're going to go through greater experiences of dissonance because they're not integrating those lower vibrational aspects. So part of the source imagination and source inspiration, it is everything that life is. Source creator is inspired to imagine new life. And imagination is the seat of every single aspect of who we are as creator beings. Us as creator gods, we are given visions and downloads, and as we said in our last video, usually inspirations that come from the higher self comes through right the pineal, and that pineal inspiration are those directed bubbles of golden spark that are given from the divine. That's why it's so important, again, to be tapped in and turned on to your own teams, to your higher self every day. So get aligned every day, do your ascension pathwork in the morning, do your healing ascension pathwork at night. And that way you always have a constant alignment, because then you're starting to create that culmination of energy in all that you are in your vortex and in your field, right? Your field of omnipresence, your field of omnipresence in the greater field of omnipresence is the galaxy and the universe, right? It's all toroidal, it's all omnipresent, it's all micro macro. And therefore, thus, then you're getting a lot more intimate with the energies that you're moving with intention, direction, and focus, because that's how we do create reality. We create reality through the intention of our energy. Remember, karma begins at intention, or your dharma begins at intention. How you direct your energy, and then how you focus your energy, and that's how you create, that's how you manifest. So that manifestation is, we're wanting to bring in that, the underbelly, which is so important because it is everything in creation. It is how the creator creates. It is the imagination of all that is potential and possible in whatever dimension and realm you're at, because there's always going to be dimensional rules. And the higher you get, the less rules there are, because you're closer and closer to source. Everything is possible. Everything is still possible in the fifth dimension, far more possible than the 3 dimension. But you're the one that has to do the work. You have to get in the elevator and press the button. You have to transmute those beliefs. You have to transmute that your body is going to be the same as it was yesterday, that your health is going to be the same as it was yesterday, or how authentic and beautiful you are and genuine you are is going to be the same as it was yesterday. You're the one that actually has to ignite change, and that's alchemy. You're the one that has to be the spirited inspiration behind all change. And that's why Source Creator is imagination of all life. And Source Creator is inspired to come up with unique pieces of diversity so that everything within that pocket of dimension or bandwidth or soul tribe or family, whatever it is that we're defining environment, that there is infusion of diversity and inspiration. Otherwise, how would it be inclusive to see everything of one thing in one environment, and there's no duality, there's no juxtaposition of anything? Then there's no growth and evolution. That's why there has to be that dichotomy of another energy source, right? There is always the push and the pull of energies and magnetics. So if they're all the same magnetic and they're all the same looking, they're all the same type, and everything is exactly the same, there would be no growth, because there's nothing for that holographic experience to see itself of. So imagination and inspiration is everything for the highest level of inventiveness, for the highest level of imagination, for the highest level of what's next for humanity in that next bandwidth that's breathing and inhaling, exhaling the potentialities of who we are and who we are becoming. We're here to inspire one another. So the more that one person is inspired to become the best that they are in how they see themselves and how they feel themselves as beautiful and authentic, how they see themselves and feel themselves as becoming more healthy, and it's directed from within. You're storyboarding your health and your wellness. You're storyboarding how you are infused with Source Creator in everything, so that the replication of your cells changes, the replications of your muscles change, and you're bringing up those cell memories that are, if they're either distorted or abused, or if they have a great cell memory when you used to be really fit, then those cell memories can be brought forward and start working on them and introducing them into this now moment and shifting the memories that your cells are sitting within. And then again, if you wanted to, lengthen the telomeres and have different synaptic experiences, then those are your intentions to work with your teams, and it's absolutely possible. So get in touch with your bodily systems. Get in touch with what it is you want to start with on how you want to infuse higher vibrational, higher intelligent, universal love and light, so that you can become this soul infused storyboard with Source Creator. Again, everything that you do, infuse spirit. And spirit is very tangible. You can feel spirit. When you breathe in, you can feel your whole body become goosebumpy, because you're intending, yes, spirit, I want you with me on this ride. I want to see if I can manifest a beautiful body that I choose. It's not based on any magazine or anything like that. You can get clips and ideas of how something might look, but you want to have that beauty of your authentic beauty, not the beauty to copy somebody else. So really, really release what you feel and what you know to be about copying what you see, or what you might think to be the trend of the age right now, or the trend of the moment. You want to move within and say, can you bring forward ideas and visions and remembrances of when I was my most authentic? When was I at my most authentic creatively? When was I most my authentic when in my self-love of myself, when there was nobody outside of me telling me or showing me anything about who I was? Because you don't need people feeding you false hopes and, building up your ego when they're just doing it because they have an agenda or they have something that they're going to get out of it. But just because you're sitting in just being who you are and nobody has an agenda, but they're absolutely loving being with you. And that is your true sense of self. That's your true authentic experience where you're magnetizing. That's your pure magnetization. That is the genuine love. That's the genuine spirit. Right? And you can feel that because you're just sitting magnetizing life. And that's what's meant by learning through, I guess if you want to take a divination tool like the tarot, the tarot decks, and there's various aspects of archons and there's various aspects of archetypes. And each card has an archetypal energy that's read within that archetype, and how we move through the various queens or the kings or the knights or the pages. Those are each archetypes that we're learning certain personality aspects of ourselves, and we're inspired by those personality aspects because they're all needed in life. Whether it's a page of swords or whether it's a queen of swords, those aspects and attributes of personality are needed and required so that you become the empress. The empress and the emperor are the highest archons in that deck of personality attributes. But I can see us coming in the future having more of a fifth dimensional, higher vibrational experience of the tarot. And it must be, because we're not working from the lower subconscious energies anymore, where we're driven by these wounds and people are behaving and acting and speaking from wounds, as you can tell. You can be speaking from those parts of you like, holy cow, like I can really design myself in a beautiful way. I can design myself that doesn't have to do anybody else outside of me, or a fashion book or a fashion magazine, or who my boyfriend's last girlfriend looked like. You want to be that sense of beauty that is like, wow, you're a beautiful galactic being, and you can actually start seeing those galactic energies because all you care about is just you and feeling good in who you are in the skin you're in. Many of us that are starseeds, because I'm a reader and I'm intuitive, many of us that go through life, we have so many insecurities about how we look, how we feel, how we're presenting ourselves in the world, because we've always felt, kind of not in alignment of everybody else outside of us. And it's been a very confusing story for us to tell of ourselves. Like, I don't feel like any of you are acting. I know I don't feel like all of you are talking and speaking. So there's always that juxtaposition of never fitting. This is one of the most common conversations I have with Mother, Father, and my teams. I've told them I don't know how many times, like I don't fit in the body I'm sitting in. I feel like I could just, take it off and go into a new body. And that's what I mean. I'm purposely staying in my body so I can stay grounded in the physical. And I don't necessarily fit and feel as if those people around me and how people talk and how people behave, are there's not a lot of, cohesion, because there's so much that's going on in the inner spirit of me, and that emulates to the outer people. And then that's part of the trigger that they get from my light, from me being a celestial earth angel, if you will. Those codes are automatically in that magnetizing exhalation and inhalation of who I am as a being. And those sense it, but in the meantime, I still have to live and operate as this functioning matter person that's going through life that doesn't necessarily feel like anybody else feels. And you're not meant to. You're meant to feel unique. But part of the ascension pathwork is to accept all that you are. Go through the allowance and the acknowledgement of all that you are, and again, make lemonade out of what you appear and what you kind of idealize as lemonade experiences and lemon situations, where you know that you're there to make an impact, that you're there to bring your light forward, that you're there to allow everybody to be who they are, We don't want a whole planet of clones. We don't want a whole planet of everybody trying to look and be like everybody else. But we want you to go within, and we want you to find the imagination. And we want you to find your own inspiration of who you are with Source, and start infusing greater self-inspiration and greater self knowing that it's okay to have those moments where you feel like you don't fit, because you're looking at your body in different ways and you're feeling about your body in different ways. And that's part of, again, getting comfortable with your androgyny, getting okay with your divine feminine moments where you just feel like you just want to surrender into yourself and just heal for a little while. And getting in charge of those divine masculine moments where you have to stand up for yourself and, and tell people, no, I'm really comfortable being like this, and this is who I choose to be in this moment. And then having those more stern moments where you're putting boundaries around thought, words, and deeds, and allowing others to know that as well, that there are rules of engagement now, because you want a higher vibrational reality. The celestials that will be coming to meet us in first contact, they have a very high acuteness, and they have a very high practice at self-discernment, and very high practice at self-love. They don't allow people to treat them harshly. They don't allow people to treat them the way that we treat each other here on earth. There's no exception for that. They can disappear the second they step before you if they feel that you're projecting negative energy and hate at them. So it's really important to get in touch with who you are. And if you are projecting hate and you're projecting all of these things, why are you doing it? Because there is a low sense of self, because you're feeling yourself not as pretty, or not as accepted, or not as ideals, or whatever your ideals and notions are. You get those feelings from within. So go within and start feeding yourself within, start nourishing yourself within, start being inspired with spirit within, ask spirit to come in and begin healing those wounds with you. But you have to do the work. You can't go through life and just expecting, operations and expecting a new hair color, a new hairdo to do that inspirational, character development, and who you are as a character of Source for you. Those are things you have to churn, you have to alchemize, you have to do the work, you have to excavate your garden. You have to pull up those bits and pieces that you thought were not manageable, or were not visible, and were not approachable, and were not, you have to look at it. Why do I feel like I have to compete and compare myself to everybody that is before me? So release all comparisons and all ideals of competition. It has no place in fifth dimensional reality. Your cells don't compare to one another. Your cells inside your body don't compare to one another. The flowers in the fields don't compare one another from one poppy to another poppy. Roses don't compare oneself to a yellow poppy, or a yellow rose to a pink rose. They don't compare themselves. They just bloom as who they are, and they bloom in the colors and the lushness of who they are. We're the ones that see them as a pink or a green, but they don't define themselves, and they don't compare themselves, and they don't say, well, I'm more lush than you are. I have more petals than you do. I'm more soft than you are. Nothing in nature does that. Nothing in nature does that. The only reason why animals compete for a meat and compete for space or compete for a mate is because they see that emulated from the energies that are in the consciousness. And this has been talked about by all channelers, that nature and wildlife behaves the way it does because it's the energy that it sees from the collective. We've set that pace. And we're seeing more and more and more that animals are now presenting themselves in a more peaceful state to assist us in our healing. There's a great, beautiful, and this is why we always have nature and animals as our highest level of symbolisms for teaching. They're showing us how to behave in greater unity and peace and oneness, and how are we allowing that to be a bridge for greater co-creation within ourselves. Everything is a storyboard. Everything is a story of energy. Everything is a story of how you're at your moment of consciousness. How are you opening into the imagination and the inspiration of Source? Source is gifting you everything. It's all for you. Source is gifting you those moments of how can I really allow this to change and alter who I am so that I can be a more beautiful, authentic version of me. I've always had these stories about, animals and what the animals are doing and saying at that moment in time within nature, within whatever experience that I'm going through. And I sometimes don't talk about those stories because nobody else around me understands that animals speak and forests speak and all that is nature speaks. It all speaks. It's all Gaia. It's all consciousness. And many of my clients throughout my 17 years of doing this, many of my clients are Gaia speakers because they've been past shamans. They understand that how birds fly in the skies at certain times of the day or the year or the season will dictate what's coming in the weather. They'll dictate if there's an earthquake that's coming, there's rumblies within the oceans. The animals are always talking to us. The animals and the nature, their vibrations of the storytelling and the storyboard and the omnipresent that is source creator moving at all times. And so again, that's part of your authenticity. It's owning that authenticity and saying, no matter what, I'm going to be myself today. No matter what, I'm going to come forward and just be the stories of who I am. It's needed. You know, like last night I had this wonderful experience. I had this, I was talking to this girl that I talk to often, and she's just starting to awaken to her gifts. And she told me stories that she'd remembered and she didn't really pay attention, and how she'd heard spirit, you know. She would hear the voice of people that had passed on. And she was starting to awaken to her mediumship, so I was so happy for her. And she was saying all these different experiences, and I was bringing her notice. I was saying, do you notice that when you're said that, this, and this, it's telling you that you have symbolisms and stories within that, and that you can also tap into in mediumship. You know, you can mediumship those experiences with those animals, because she was noticing that spirit was also talking to her in animals, and the synchronicities and the stories that she was bringing forward, just as intuitiveness. You know, so I was picking up on it, and I was reading it for her spirit guides, you know, and just giving her, and I said, your spirit guides are just bringing it to my attention so that I can bring it to your attention, so that you can read all that is energy. It doesn't, you know, you are hearing the voices, and you are hearing the names and the things that, of your passed on relatives, and you are hearing those things. So give yourself that credit, you know, and give yourself that attention to say, yeah, you are. You know, you're an authentic being that has these beautiful gifts. So give yourself that acknowledgement and your acceptance and your allowance of your gifts and skills and talents. And then, you know, just know that all the other things you've been talking to, that you do also have these other gifts and skills. So how can you start working with it and paying attention to all these synchronicities that unfold in your day? And what are they telling you? That spirit's always around. You know, spirit's always with you. So she was quite happy that there was so much in her life that was speaking with her, and she didn't have to feel so lonely about the past she had been going through since she lost her husband. You know, and so spirit's always talking to us like that, even though you might think that you're alone. And, you know, like myself, I've been spending 8 years in a strange experience trying to move through divorce. And in 2024, I finally had the finalized stamp of the divorce. And I've been alone for so long. You know, I've chosen a path of celibacy so that I can work through so many traumas and so many things that I needed to heal. And plus, I didn't feel that there wasn't any company in my environment that I would ever give my life force to, because it just wasn't. I didn't feel I wanted to share that, because my life force is very important, and I wouldn't play with my life force in that way, or my body. I want to share my body with somebody that is equally important with their body, and choose to be that selective with their body and their life force and who they share it with. It shows self-respect, it shows self-love, and those are the things I'm looking for. That's the thing I'm magnetizing. But I choose that. That's my storyboarding. So what we wanted to talk about today is just keep bringing these ideas, and maybe watch this video a couple of times, because we are changing the entire perspective of what is beauty and what is wellness and what is youthfulness, and how do we design it from an imaginative experience, from a storyboarding experience. And then bringing inspiration, because in spirit is using the essence of spirit, which is spirit says to me all the time, call spirit in for everything in every moment. And so the inspiration is everything to your manifestation, whether it's being aligned with spirit or not being aligned with spirit. So it's very, very important that you allow yourself to, in any way, bring and infuse the essence of spirit. And how do you do that? And how do you bring your meditations up so you have greater inspiration with spirit? And gathering that inspiration from spirit does have to take time, and you know, just getting silent and quiet with spirit, knowing how spirit speaks with you. Again, as we talked about our clairs, when you're opening and your gifts and your skills are turned on one by one, and your gifts and skills are turned on through, as we've talked about before, your many activations. Sometimes your activations are in your multidimensional fields. You have many multidimensional fields, as within and so without. As you're calling up those densities and calling up those wounds, it ripples out to your fields. And then every day, that's why we always say, do your ascension pathwork, clear and cleanse your fields daily, to help that clearing and flowing, so that you're getting the highest amount of source light in your fields and in your body. So clearing and cleansing your field is a daily maintenance, just like brushing your teeth. And then in the morning, it's preferable, because it's when the day starts, is start doing your daily storyboarding, your ascension pathwork. Did you have anything in your dreams that needed to be journaled and reflected and excavated, and bring out those the highest points of your dream? What were the things that stood out to you? And always go first to how you felt. In your dream, when something comes up in your dream, like whether it be a red bird or, you know, a blue car that was all crashed up, all of those things, how you recognize that thing will tell you about the story that your dreams are trying to tell you. so whether the car was crashed or whether it was brand new. All of those things, and the first thing that you go to, the first detail about that thing that you go to, especially if it's about people coming in your dreams, how did they look? Was it young or old? Were they dressed well or not dressed well? How did they look and feel for you? Like, tune in. Those are those things that the gifts of the clairs will teach you and show you. That's how you discern the story underneath the story. So dream interpretation is really important for you tuning into your gifts, your skills, and your talents, because you're going to get to know how you're discerning your dream energy, your dream symbolism, your dream archetypes. What are the themes going on in your dreams? So part of dream interpretation is 100% your attributes and your capacities and aptitudes when you're doing your daily ascension path work. It is a definite correlation. And so I love dream interpretation. So many of my clients bring me dreams that they've had, and to help them work through and understand and honor the themes that their higher self is giving them in their dreams, what they're moving through, and anticipation, because sometimes your dreams are precognitions of things to come. And so just understanding that dream interpretation is really important to do. So do your dream interpretation as a part of your daily path work. It's one-on-one, right? Because it's the subconscious speaking with you and working through you. Sometimes you do a lot of healing in your dreams. And so it's, again, really important. Do your daily path work and bring your dreams and your dream interpretation forward as a part of your daily path work. And we talk about this in all of my classes. Dream interpretation is the subconscious coming forward. And if you have trouble remembering your dreams, just at nighttime, ask your teams and your guides, just do a statement of intention. Can I please call forward the dreams I'm meant to remember so that I can work through this one issue? And you can even name the issues you want to work through in your dreams. So you can even precognate the dreams you're going to have and work on certain issues. And that's part of your design storyboard, because your health is directly related to how you feel and how you look. It's directly related to how your body is manifesting itself. All of these things are all correlated, right? You're a physical body, but in that physical body, you're physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, metaphysical, sexual. All of these things encompass and make up that physical body. So if all of these things are out of imbalance, and if your chakras are not in balance that are aligned through the center of your pillar of light, if all of these things are not in balance, you're going to be a very chaotic, wishy-washy being, and you're going to magnetize all of those chaotic energies. And why people continue on karmic cycles. Because your energy is just vibrating chaos. Where is the direction? Where is the focus of who you are? And who is the intention of who you are? Again, certain little things that you can practice, just sitting up straight and calling greater light to your spine. And call greater light to your chakras. And call greater light to all that you are as a divine being of divine sacred light. Say your affirmations with intention. We all know that affirmations are profound in the manifestation process, especially when you're entraining yourself to a higher vibration. Because we don't just come out of the womb and have our parents, chanting affirmations of love 24/7. Most of us, and in our age category, in our generation, come from broken homes. We come from homes that our marriages have not worked out. We've come from places and people, places and things that have been, entirely karmic, because this is the humanity's evolution, where we're purging all of our karmic and energies, because they've been so skewed and misunderstood and misrepresented, and they have absolutely been incorrect, knowledges and wisdoms about divine feminine and masculine energy. It's everything. If you're not paying attention to your divine feminine and masculine energies on a daily basis, you will not be balanced. It is everything. Divine feminine energies, divine masculine energies of who you are as a being of divine source light, of divine godly light. These will show itself to you in every day, and that's your path work, is to bring harmony to the divine feminine masculine energies, to know that your divine feminine needs its space and voice when it's due, when it's ready. Your divine masculine needs its space and voice when it's time to choose a soulmate, and you're choosing it for the lineage's legacy that as a divine masculine, as divine feminine, especially if you're a creator God. You're going to know that your divine lineages and your legacies are speaking to you very loudly right now, because they're asking you to cull what is karmic. They're asking you to weed out and excavate your garden. Your lineages are coming through very loudly and clearly, vibrationally. Those that have been on the path for a while, those that are creator gods that will be moved into God's councils and systems of greater galactic interplay, which I will be a part of. I've known that since I awoken, because I had always had celestials and aliens around me. So I always knew there was a greater part of the celestial, community that I would play a part of and help humanity understand that bridge. It's just a natural bridge, right? Just like adding on your clearing of your fields, we're just adding that as a part of our daily maintenance, just like brushing our teeth. We've always been celestial and galactic. We've never had it a part of our life. So we have to entrain those aptitudes back into our life. We have to build that bridge. We're designing ourselves, storyboarding. Storyboarding is really important, because that's when you get that inspiration and creativity back again. You're using source and spirit, as spirit is everything creative. Spirit wants to see, how can you storyboard the celestials back into your life? How can you storyboard your teams back in your life? How can you storyboard the celestials in the skies, and the aliens and the light ships that are always with you, and they're always darting across the sky and seeing if you notice them? All that is spirit is talking to you. How can you storyboard this back into your life? So just have a straight back, dear lighted ones, because you are important. And your pillar of light sits along the spine, and it's a beautiful transparent